Hi everybody, happy month of Tektite. We'd like to thank you for expressing interest in checking out your kits, and certainly the Lawrenceburg Public Library and the Friends of the Lawrenceburg Public Library for sponsoring our Year of Stones and Crystals. This month is really exciting, and I'm excited that we had a source and we were able to get a good price on these and share them with you. And so it's a little bit different than our average stone and crystal, because technically the Tektite or the Tektose that's in your kit is not a stone or mineral or even a crystal, but a naturally created glass. So this is technically, by true definition, glass. And when you get yours wet or hold it up, and then in your handout it talks about oiling them to make them kind of stand out more jewelry-like, you'll be able to see the translucency and the weight and the feeling and tell that it's a glass. It kind of reminds me when you're lucky and you find a really good sea glass, piece of sea glass, or like a piece of river bottle or something that's been worn down and kind of naturalized. But this glass was not touched by man in any way, shape, or form except to harvest and sell. And it was created in outer space. So if you think about it, it's pretty amazing and hard to believe that you can stand here in Lawrenceburg, Indiana and hold a Tektite that is about 14 million years old, that crashed through the ozone and was created in outer space. So again, it's not a stone or mineral, and it does come from the Greek term or the Latin root of tektose, which means molten or melted. And it is a naturally created glass that's composed of extraterrestrial debris. So basically space dust, just garbage and dust and stuff floating around in outer space once you pass our atmosphere. Extreme heat and impact is what causes it. So we can only imagine the kind of heat that these space dust particles would be exposed to in outer space in an extraterrestrial dimension. Probably hotter than we could even imagine. And then when the impact happens, when they crash through the atmosphere and Earth, that's what gives them the kind of their molten, irregular, different shapes and sizes. They're actually melted in outer space, so they're already melted as they come. And once they enter the Earth's atmosphere, they cool very fast, because like we were talking about, the temperature would be so drastically higher that even the hottest day on planet Earth would be very, very cool in comparison, and it would make them cool right away. That also kind of lends to their irregular shape and kind of their different sizes and textures, is that it would impact the temperature, would impact their shape and how quickly or slowly they would cool. So the shapes and sizes are irregular and vary, but it was just depending on the amount of space dust, the extreme heat, the impact, and the temperature that would make them vary a little bit. So again, the Tektite in your kit today is about 14 million years old. They say 10 to 14 million years old. And this piece is mined in North America near Mexico in the desert. So there's a huge, I've never been, but I've seen pictures in our catalog that we order and looked it up and read about it, and some of the books too that are in your handout, if you're interested in it, have really good pictures and illustrations. A giant crater basically in the middle of the desert out west, and these things are just abundantly scattered kind of in, within, around, and all throughout the desert sand. And the scientists have done discoveries and kind of figured out their composition and have determined their general age and where they came from and what they are composed of. So right at the beginning of COVID, I know on TikTok there was a big kind of like moldavite craze, and moldavite is a form of Tektite. So your Tektite is a moldavite, but your moldavite isn't a Tektite. So the moldavite, which makes it extra expensive and harder to find and kind of rare and special, only happens in Czechoslovakia and Russia, kind of a place where the borders have changed countries, so it sort of alters with names. But a really distinct place up in Russia. And it is a Tektite site, a meteorite crash, but the meteorites that crash there, due to the Russian atmosphere and the extreme cold when they entered the Earth's atmosphere, they're all a green, a really pretty green. So if you ever see something that looks like a Tektite but it's a green, or if you ever order or buy Moldavite, you would want it to look just like this and feel like this and weight, but it should be a really dark, translucent olive green. And that's what makes Moldavite a little bit different, is that it comes from that one specific place in Russia or Czechoslovakia, and its glass formation is green. And they do attribute that to the extreme climate, like very, very cold nature of the area, Russia, right, Burr, and that's why the color of the glass is different. You'll also sometimes see or hear about desert glass, or Libyan or Syrian desert glass it's called. Those are also tektites. They're just called desert glass because they're only found in that specific Syrian desert, in this little pocket of the earth. And they're very similar too, but their difference is that they're almost white, milky, translucent, kind of like an eggshell color. They have like some depth to it, but kind of like an off-white and a matte. And that's what makes that desert glass extra special. So again, that's a tektite, but this tektite isn't the glass, because the Moldavite and the Syrian or the desert glass come from very pocketed specific places, where these tektites are a little more abundant and readily found in North America. There's many, many, many of them. I guess perhaps thousands, if not millions, if they're selling them by the pound. So there we go, right? The gravel-sized bodies of black, green, brown, or gray naturally formed glass, which I find just fascinating. And it's made out of extraterrestrial debris ejected from meteorites and formed upon impact as it crashes into the planet Earth. Pretty neat. And so a lot of like extraterrestrial work or belief in maybe communication with AI from other dimensions talks a lot about tektite, and kind of like if you have any extraterrestrial interest at all, tektite, moldavite, sea glass, not sea glass, desert glass, things like that are oftentimes intertwined into the science study and belief system of extraterrestrial. So for fun, to think about ways to start to wear and use your kits that or your specimens that you've had since we're in month 7, what we've done is in your envelope this month are these little itty bitty stone cages. And some are bigger, medium, some are quite large, some are gold and some are silver. And they're a lot easier to manipulate and stretch and work with than you would think. And I wanted to show this example of the smallest one. So you would see the small one next to that and think, well, that would never fit or work, okay? And if you don't want to manipulate it and take your time, that's fine. I would just use it for maybe my garnet, my aquamarine, or a specimen that I had in my own personal collection. And you slide these right in there and make a little pendant. However, this is the exact same size cage in this tektite kit that I pulled out to show you, and I wanted to let you know I've only worked on this for maybe about 5 or 10 minutes while I was in here finishing setting up and waiting for Denise to come in and things, and I stretched mine apart, and you can kind of do a pseudo wire wrap, and again this was the same size, and I kind of like a slinky pulled it from end to end. I intertwined it in there so it wouldn't, and made it expand and stretch, okay? And if you don't want to do that with yours, you don't have to, because there's plenty stones that you may have on your own or from previous kits, or for peridot next month. The peridots would fit in there without having to manipulate it. But I like to make my stone cages do what I want and boss them around. And it's a really nice pliable or palatable wire, jewelry wrapping wire, and you can kind of manipulate it and twist them and turn them around and make your own necklace and wire wrapping out of them, okay? And it's a really kind of relaxing, cool thing to do. And then they have the little pendant hooks up here for you to string on like a piece of, leather, or if you have a chain or a cord of your own. So if you take your time and manipulate these, you can get them to work with the larger pieces of tektite. However, if that's not in your nature and you just want to keep something that's small and sweet and pop it in and out without stretching your cage out, but again, they're pretty forgivable, then just use it for another specimen from a previous month or save it for next month's peridot. Or you probably have a little marble or a treasure or a stone or something like that in your own personal collection that it would work for. So we just kind of hit a halfway point. I thought I'd give you a jewelry piece to start to kind of play with and manipulate and try to turn your things into wearable pieces of jewelry or art. And then we talked about it last month. I'm going to leave this one stretched out, right like that. Just as a reminder, these are super fun and popular right now, and they're these cool little macrame stone holders. And the Tektite in this looks really cool too. And again, we talked about it with moonstone, but I just wanted to show you how if you take the time to learn how to do these or make them or purchase one, you can change them out. Like, so last month you would take your moonstone out and then put your Tektite in for this month. Okay? And the stone cages act in a very similar way. So again, if you happen to get a kit with a really teeny tiny one, don't be dissuaded. It's really easy to manipulate with this wire and make a wrapping out of it. And again, if you don't want to manipulate it and stretch it out, just use it for a smaller size stone or crystal. Okay? So next month for August is going to be peridot, which is sort of exciting. It's another space rock, and we'll talk more about it later. But it's actually almost on the endangered list for mineral and space specimens. So we're only a few years away from kind of a finite supply of peridot, because they're going to run out eventually of the mining source. So it's really pretty. It's a beautiful green. It's really special and kind of a high-end treat. So be sure to sign up and register for your August peridot. And in the meantime, enjoy your extraterrestrial ET phone home Tektite for the summer. Thanks so much.